Welcome back, everyone, to the Know Your Game podcast. And today, like all others, we have a very special guest joining us today to help us learn, earn, and save. Today, we're going to be learning about how to save cost when energy production and management at your facility. And who better to talk about this than a long-standing partner with USIndoor, APPI, and representing them today is Jamie Polend, energy consultant, here to kind of give us the lowdown on how to basically save costs on your energy production. Jamie, welcome aboard.
Yes. Thank you for having me on. Pleasure to be here. Pleasure to talk through all of this for your members and see how we can help. So,
absolutely. For those who don't know, Jamie has attended many of our conferences in the past. APPI typically has an exhibitor booth where a lot of people tend to visit, because who doesn't want to save money, right? When it comes to anything, especially with energy production and the way costs are rising, and everyone's trying to save a buck now. Still somewhat in the recovery phase of COVID and all that happened with COVID, although we're kind of getting out of that depression, if you will.
Right.
But we're here to kind of help our facility operators save even more money if they're not doing this already. And there's a lot of, there's going to be a lot of aha moments in what Jamie's going to be presenting today. He has a formal presentation. And Jamie, go ahead, you can cue that up if you like.
Sure.
And as Jamie goes through and again gives us that lowdown on where and how to save money in regards to energy management and reduction, I'll be chiming in every so often if I find something compelling to ask, and we can kind of drill down on some of these topics. So with that, Jamie, let me go ahead and turn the floor over to you, and let's hear what you got to say.
Yes. Thanks, James. And thanks again also for having us on. As mentioned, my name is Jamie Polend. I'm a consultant here at APPI. My core focus is to help members of USIndoor and other associations that we work with kind of realize and understand where their costs are lying in the forms of electricity and natural gas billing. We do all sorts of things. Our core competency is, obviously the procurement aspect of it that we'll go through. But we also dabble into sustainability efficiency projects, as it says across the top here, resiliency, procurement, all these types of things we do here. APPI is a division of Environ. We merged with Environ earlier this year. Basically, and we'll go into this briefly real quick. Environ is a much larger kind of parent company. It's got 6 founder-led organizations. And what that basically means is 6 of the country's largest and oldest energy procurement and solutions firms have now come together under one umbrella, that umbrella being Environ. And we consist of, as you can see, Hospital Energy, which is a division of Environ as well. They focus a lot on the healthcare industry, mainly up in the Northeast. Then you have APPI Energy, which is myself. We are nationwide. Best Practice Energy is sort of the Mid-Atlantic, Pennsylvania region. That's for the procurement side. That's how we find cost avoidance or cost reductions for our clients in electricity and natural gas on the procurement side. Now, all of us together do the sustainability, the wind, solar, hydro that we'll get into. Gotham is a division of us that focuses on sustainability, meaning we can all dabble and talk about solar all day long, and we can talk about wind and hydro power. They can go much deeper, ultra high efficiency HVAC systems, more along the lines of making sure that investment related opportunities to cut costs are worth it. We're not just a sign and drive operation that says, oh, you want this, here you go. We're going to tell you this makes sense, this doesn't make sense. You could go route A, you could go route B. ISOs, same type of operation. Scope 5 is a very new thing to the energy world. They focus on scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions. Pretty confident that there's not a lot of this being required by the government in the USIndoor market. Basically what that is large organizations have to start doing carbon reporting. They have to report their greenhouse gas emissions. They have to report their environmental controls. Scope 5 is a division of us that can allow the end user to see it broken down on a daily basis and be able to report it to the government when those standards come into effect. Everybody here at Environ has the same goal. That's to advocate for all of our clients, help them procure energy, reduce consumption, achieve their goals, and always be good standards with us and through themselves for the environment. So it's a little bit about the overall brief view of APPI.
Awesome.
What we have for you today, just put together some slide stuff. It's going to be a lot of information. So if you see or hear something that you're interested in, as always, you can reach out to James, who can contact me, or you can contact me as well. Because it is a lot of information. We kind of send the notion that we're little geeks of the industry and we know the ins and outs. I obviously know a little bit about, I know what a bubble is or a dome. I know what an upper 90 soccer kick is, but, some of the rest of the stuff, I really just would have to get a little bit deeper with the owner operator to understand the whole scope of that. So that's why we're here. We're going to go over, what's that, James? Go ahead.
No, I was going to say very good. And also we're going to be providing this slide, the presentation that you're about to see. I'll provide a link in the description to this video. So if anyone would like to, peruse through it at their leisure, they'll be able to do so.
Yeah, great. And then what we'll do right before the end, then James says, I'll add my contact info on that last one. So they have
Wonderful.
We're just basically going to go through solutions for reducing your energy. Now, this isn't aimed to tell you that we are the big and bad bear in the market and that everything we say is correct. This is just an educational purpose. And if you're interested in learning more, please contact us. Some of you will get it right away. Some of you may not even know some of these things were available in your certain markets. So we're going to touch base on all of that. But moving on, what we have here, I know USIndoor members operate from all over the country. We, as an international operation, long before Environ, operate pretty much in all areas of the country as well. What you're looking at here is if you are in an orange state, those states are available for, as you see on the left, electricity and natural gas procurement. Those types of things are where we do a little bit of an analysis of your invoice. Some of you may be familiar with third-party supply agreements, but our goal is to find you the best strategy on the market. It's not about price any longer. Gone are the days and savings for many things. I compare it to a lot of restaurants and operators. If 5 years ago, somebody came to you and said, let me lock the price of your chicken wings for the next 25 years, everyone would have done it. Nobody knew that things were just going to go through the roof. Coming out of COVID, costs have nearly doubled in many markets. So our job is to help you mitigate all that future increased risk. Some people, like I said, may have a contract that reads 5 cents in Illinois, and the best thing we can find is 9. That doesn't necessarily mean that we're terrible at what we do. It means 9 is the best out there, and that's the best you can get, and here's why. So orange is for electricity and natural gas. Blue, if you have some facilities in any of those states, that's strictly natural gas. That's all we can really work with there. And then, of course, California, Oregon, some places like that. Those are partially deregulated, but deregulated. So if you are interested in one of those and you're in one of those states, definitely reach out to me. We can take that offline because it's far more than just a blue state or an orange state. Now, what we have here, this is a breakdown of what your head power company is. So, if you're in Ohio, you might have Duke Energy, the Illuminating Company, AEP Ohio, etc. But in reality, you're under the Mid-Continent ISO, the Independent System Operator, and that is the head company of the electricity grid. Those exist in different areas. Obviously, New England Independent System Operator. New York is its own. Then you have PJM coming down the coast. PJM basically stands for Pennsylvania, Jersey, and Maryland, although it does encompass West Virginia, Delaware, and Ohio, portions of Indiana, and portions of Illinois. Down in the Southeast, where I live in Southwest Florida, there's no retail trade operation or independent system operator that's in charge. Everybody fends for themselves, and the utilities control all the costs. Then you move over to Texas. I'm sure many of you, even across the country, knew and heard about ERCOT either last year or going back to Winter Storm Uri. ERCOT is their abbreviation, the Electricity Reliability Council of Texas. They're their own as well. And then you move up through the Midwest, Southern Power Pool, SPP, and then out to California, who's their own too. So this is just kind of a little bit of knowledge, just in case somebody wanted to know who their grid operator was.
Well, let me ask a quick follow-up then, Jamie. How often, if ever, do these geographical regions change as maybe some of these institutions grow or decrease? Does that happen at all? And if so, how often?
So it's very rare that there's an addition to an ISO or a change in an ISO. And when I say very rare, it hasn't happened in a long time, but there is a little bitty portion of Lubbock, Texas, that is now moving out of SPP, which was formerly regulated, into ERCOT in Texas. These are set based on grid resiliency, who operates the grid, who manages the grid, who controls all the little substations, peaker plants, nuclear power plants, everything amongst itself. That, in my history in the energy market, which I've been in the energy industry up to and including working with Tesla Solar for many years, for over 10 years. That's the only change I've ever seen take place. And that's basically taking place January 1st. So if you do happen to have a facility in Lubbock and you're listening, you need to call me ASAP, because as of March 31st next year, there's nothing you can do. And your cost, unfortunately, is going to go through the roof. Happy to do an analysis. Everything we do is, as you guys probably have heard before me say at the shows, it doesn't cost you anything. There's no obligation. We could work together for a year. And then you could basically say, nope, I'm okay with paying more money. I'm totally good with it. And I say, no problem. Absolutely. I'll see you next year. Yeah. All right. So best things you can do to lower your energy. There is so many things. Aside from changing your hours, because you don't want to cut back your hours or cut back your, your membership programs, close off fields, not operate bubbles in the wintertime just to save money. What you have is so many things at your fingertips, of which we are all versed in. That's why we now are basically 6 companies put to one. All starts with audits. We do site audits. We do then the data analysis. Then we look at the options and projects that might be beneficial. Very small, 1 indoor field, 2 basketball courts, 1 volleyball court might not be a suitable person for solar, but their HVAC system might be 15 years old. So rather than calling a heating and cooling company, in Columbus, Ohio, for what we do, have a free energy audit with a recommendation that might give you a variable speed drive and an ultra high efficiency HVAC system for even cheaper than the guy selling it to you from Home Depot. All kinds of things. Lighting, LED lighting. Anybody who hasn't transferred or switched over to LED lighting, I highly recommend giving us a call so we can help you there. It's a little bit different than just going and replacing a couple light bulbs. You can put lighting controls on things, so where you have an area of the building that nobody's using and nobody's walking through there, the lights will automatically shut off. And then when somebody goes and walks through a back kitchen and or starts to operate the day, the lights will come on. That saves a lot of money. We look at the overall building envelope, meaning is there anywhere we can upgrade heating and cooling units, meaning cooling for refrigeration or heating as in a kitchen. Obviously, the biggest thing on the market, solar. Anybody who's in an area where a net meter process is good, you can get solar. Now, some people might not have a lot of what would be space, or maybe you only have those bubbles. We can get creative and make it parking lot solar. So your membership can come in, park underneath sort of a carport, and the roof of the carport operates as your solar system. We can provide electric charging stations for when the dad comes to have the 3 kids play basketball or soccer at nighttime, can charge his car. Water conservation, all sorts of things. So it all starts with the audit, collecting the data, talking to you as the owner, what you're looking for and what we can do to help. Again, all at no cost, because some people are kind of derailed when it says, you need 500 solar panels and it costs $60,000. They're like, oh, well, never mind. Difference being, if you're in one of those orange states, if you guys might recall the orange states, there's ways for you to get that solar system without spending dime. And that's not in a lease program. That's in an ownership program. Whereas a supplier that you work with in one of those orange states can actually pay for it. You can get it installed. You can reap the benefits of it, and you can pay for it through your energy invoice. So it becomes sort of an off the balance sheet type loan. The qualifications are much easier. And it's also now an operational expense instead of having to invest in a lot of CapEx.
Great. And about how long does that typically take, this auditing process? Let's say step 1 and 2.
Mm-hmm. Audits can be quick. If you're in an orange state and you have a small facility, or even you got a couple small ones, and your bills are minimal, we can have that audit done in 5 days. If you are an operation that has, different buildings in different markets all across the country, you want to loop something together, it can take a little bit longer. It really is a result of how fast can we receive the data from you so that we can do the analysis. From start to finish, an energy procurement deal can be 3 weeks.
Wow.
A solar system from start to finish without the installation,
right?
Obviously, and the approvals from the ISOs. Remember the chart from earlier. Mm-hmm. Same, 4 to 5 weeks. Install about in a year, sometimes quicker. But the audit can be quick. Now if you have, let's take for instance, we do have I won't drop any names, obviously. Excuse me. We have a USIndoor member that we just recently worked with quite a few facilities in Ohio, Texas, and Illinois. Obviously, we couldn't bundle them all together, even though we wanted to, but you can't bundle outside different utility operations.
I was going to say it's because of their locations, right? And those geographical zones you highlighted earlier.
Right. We did put all the Ohio ones together. We put all the Illinois ones together, obviously, and we put the Texas ones together. But what we did in that situation is our analysts and our operations team, which to me is world-class. No other procurement firms have the depth of services for just energy procurement than us. There's 45 people that all can work together on one contract. Another big thing that's starting to become popular is called demand management. Basically, demand is how much of an actual electricity pole are your facilities drawing at a peak time? Meaning when it's 110 degrees in Dallas, Texas, every single day for 30 days, there's really not a peak time. But let's say, for instance, all of a sudden it gets really hot in Ohio for a week. That's a peak time. If you have a demand response or demand management program set in place, the utility company can actually pay you to cut back your utility usage. Sounds a little bit too good to be true, but we get notice as to when there's going to be a peak day, as I'm sure some of you have heard on, your utilities, maybe even on the local news that today's going to be a peak day, or maybe you're signed up for some type of information in Delaware or Maryland where those utilities shoot you an email. Basically what they're doing is they're asking people to be careful. Don't use too much power because it's going to put a strain on the grid. And when that happens, no matter what your price is on your bill, without a supply contract, of course, we're going to have to charge you more because it's going to cost us more to make more, to deliver more. When it's lower on those peak days, there's incentives. So if you have one of these in place, and instead of using 3,000 kilowatt hours, December 9th from 5 to 9 p.m., you only use 300, you're going to get paid on those 2,700 if that's a peak time. Right. Each utility has a different type reserve to do this. And then, of course, some facility operators that I've talked to that have had a real big interest in this, kind of hard if you have a lot of youth programs or you have after-school programs and or indoor programs where leagues and stuff taking place. It's kind of hard to call them up 4 hours ahead of time and say, don't come in tonight. Very hard to do. It's more designed for, manufacturers, restaurants, hotels, things of that nature, but it is possible. So if it's something, again, anybody's interested in learning a bit more about, feel free to call.
Yep.
One of the biggest things I think people kind of are asking about demand, though, is how do you avoid something? How do you avoid a coincidental peak, and or what is a coincidental peak?
Right.
So most utilities across the country use the most power between 5 and 9 p.m. The reason being everybody's now off work, everybody's home, kids are out of school, it's time to cook dinner, maybe watch TV, and the late afternoon hours can be very hot and or very cold. So those are what coincidental peaks are. When the highest amount of usage at the highest demand time comes in, that's called a coincidental peak. And there's 5 of those that happen a year. So if you're halfway through the year and you've already had 5, if you have another one that's higher, it takes out the low. So there's only 5 that count, but the higher it gets, the more expensive it gets. It's unavoidable. It's not saying that, you're going to now have a huge electric bill next month. But what it's saying is your electric price to compare is basically a weighted average of what the utility company had to pay over the course of 30 days to provide it to you at that price.
Gotcha.
All right. Now, I'm sure everyone's heard of the Inflation Reduction Act. That was a very good thing that happened for the country.
Right.
It's very hard for a lot of people to understand. Is the climate really warming when it was so cold in my state all last winter? It doesn't make sense. Or how is there sea level rise if the lake in my backyard I can walk across? Makes sense. Those are just weather phenomena. But because of the IRA, there's things that the government is actually paying for residential and commercial customers to help reduce their demand, help reduce their energy usage, and help control better environments. We're going to go into a couple of those on this. Incentives. Obviously, governments love to spend money. This one was a big one, $370 billion just about. Provided a time frame to go up for 10 years versus they were just previously only 1 to 3 increments. It expands tax credits, meaning for a while, the 30% tax credit for a solar company was going to dwindle away. For a solar project was going to dwindle away. Now it's staying at 30% for years to come. And those types of projects are, as a result, going to be much more cost effective. So briefly, let's say a solar system costs $100,000. Right away, the government's going to give you a $30,000 tax credit. Now, with your tax liability, if you owe, and I'm not an accountant, so I can't come to you and help fill out your forms like it's Section 190, your 179D. But in layman's terms, if you have a $30,000 tax credit, and this year you owe $30,000 in taxes with your tax 179 form, now you don't owe anything. That money obviously never has to change hands. So technically speaking, you put $30,000 in your pocket. The contrary to that,
that's awesome.
Yeah. The contrary to that is if you only owe 15 and you claim the 30, the government's going to turn around and cut you an additional $15,000 check. Or you can spread it out and do it again next year until it's wiped away. Okay. Those are the best, I would call, incentives that there are. Plus there's grants that we'll get into. Again, I'm going to look one more up that just came to my head. But yeah, those types of things people have heard about, but they haven't really thought about. And when you can get cash put in your pocket for free. Why would
Right. No brainer.
you? Sliding scale, let's go to this part. This is a little bit confusing, even confusing to me. Again, I'm core competency energy procurement, but I have an entire team behind me that focuses on this. This is called the solutions part of it. And this is just base deductions for depreciation type stuff. It's a sliding scale based on how much of your energy are you decreasing per your facility size. And obviously, take for instance, a football stadium that's indoors. Let's say, excuse me, let's say they've never invested in LEDs, want some solar, and they got really old HVAC equipment. 60,000 people go there every single week. The energy goes through the roof. If they put in a solar system and they switch to LED lights and they put in some HVAC equipment, they could have an additional bonus deduction, because it's huge, of $5 per square foot. So basically, they're going to get the 30% credit on the taxes. They're going to get a difference in their kWh, or kilowatt hour usage on the LED, and they're going to get probably $5 per square foot as a benefit grant to do so.
Wow, yeah, that's pretty significant. Just to give it an idea, like for our facility members, in terms of size of their facility, on the small sides, we're around 30,000 square feet. And it just goes up from there, upwards of 100, 120,000 square feet. So you do the quick math on that $5 per square feet, even on a small facility of 30,000 square feet. Yes. That's a big chunk of change.
Yep, and it's just part of this IRA. And with that not in place, people wouldn't be able to get that. So it's a great thing. Again, we find all of this out for you. And we basically present this to you. You have this, you have this, you have this. You don't qualify for this. And we provide it to you on a silver platter, and it's yours for the taking. It's pretty much simple. And if it's not very, let's say, rewarding, aside from the fact that as a facility operator, you're gung-ho about solar and this and that, we're going to tell you as well, because it becomes us as an extension of your team to make sure you understand the pros and cons of all of this. Our education purpose is to help you make the best decision for you. And I believe it or not, I've had people go completely against my recommendations. I had a bowling center, small little bowling center in New York, who really wanted solar. And I said, your roof is terrible. Your building is really old. It's just not profitable. He said, well, I don't care. I want it. And he paid for it. And now he has 2 solar systems on 2 small buildings in New York. And he's living it because he has no electric bill. Will take about 20 years for him to pay it off, like get his money back, meaning, what would that be? Return on investment.
Right.
But still works for him. Most return on investment on solar, depending on how you do the depreciation and the bonus assets as well, we'll get into grants, can be as little as a year and a half.
Great. And I'm going to circle back on the F word you dropped earlier, free. So when it comes to consultation, how much of that is free coming from you guys? And at what point would a paid aspect of your service, kickstart?
So the only thing that you would ever purchase from us is the actual project you want when you're ready to make the decision. Gotcha. Most of our, and I say most because a lot of them are not very fine-tuned to where we have to, find out, is it 501 structural steel or is it something else? Our engineers are pretty good. Most of our audits are all free. We do have some consultative services you can buy at, X amount of dollars per hour. So if you wanted one of our engineers to design you a building for a new construction build to house, indoor turf, basketball, volleyball, small kitchen, maybe even a bar, multiple TVs, high HVACs. You get the point. There's a consultative service for that, just like you would have with an engineering firm or an architectural firm. But every demand project, every solar presentation, site audit, and rest assured, every energy procurement, we will never send you a bill. We will never invoice you. You won't receive any difference in your AP cycles or get something up from us down the road. It's part of our commitment and our association backing, like we have with USIndoor and others, to provide that for you.
Very good. And I was being cheeky there. I actually knew the answer, but I thought it'd be beneficial for everyone to hear it straight from your mouth. So very good.
Yeah. And it's good because, like I said, I've worked with people for 2-3 years to help them make decisions. And sometimes it can take that long. Fortune 100 companies, they have a lot of, we call them higher ups and lawyers. And they all have to be relative to what does everybody want as a cohesive unit. And sometimes it can take a long time. Whereas, like I said, I talked with that group of USIndoor members just out of a standard reach out, and we had them set up in 2 weeks. Again, all totally free. Flip of that is, even the Fortune 100 company after 2 years could tell me, no, thanks, we're not interested, we're going bankrupt. We still wouldn't bill them. Wouldn't bill them at all. Some more incentives for the IRA. Obviously, if you're interested, I don't want to bore everybody with, domestic content, tribal land, low-income economic benefit projects, things like that. You'll all have this to review. but there's bonus credits in all the projects in different areas. Sometimes, as you can see at the bottom, there are credits available for projects that actually hit every single one of these. So when you're looking at a total overall investment and you're in a low income economic benefit project, meaning a low income area, you also have some tribal land that your facility sits on. You have in the corner around the back, you're in a residential, low income residential area, which is all map specific. You could have $1 million houses still in a residential project area. You got 70% bonus credits. So now your $100,000 solar system costs you $30,000, $70,000 in credits. Anybody who wants to talk through this, like I said, I won't bore everyone, but there are incentives that can happen additionally all across the country. We also have the United States Department of Agriculture program. This allows for projects to get even more funded by the government, up to 50%. As you can see at the very bottom, grant awards range from $1,500 to $500,000 and $2,500 to $1 million for renewable energy projects. Not to say everyone's going to qualify for the top tier, because we know they're not. You're not going to use there is no USIndoor member whose one facility encompasses, 1 million square feet across 4 floors, is open 24/7 and uses 1 million kilowatt hours a day. They just don't exist. But manufacturers do fall into this. So these are just more incentives built into the 5,000-page IRA that people don't know about. Like I said, we find them all for you, hand them to you so that you basically sign your name and you take the benefit. We do all the qualifications. If you don't qualify, we tell you why. There's maps, there's sites we can send to you for links and website links to say, before you even call us, do I fit into one of these? And go from there. Like I said, though, most of our membership here at the USIndoor and the people that I've worked with, we're all going to be on the lower end. Not to saying that's bad, because honestly, I had a solar system installed through Tesla at my home in Delaware, and I got 30% tax credit. So I didn't have to pay for $8,000 worth of solar system. The government paid for it. It's still all the same thing.
Great. And the two lists that we can see here, the renewable energy systems and the energy efficient improvements, from your experience with USIndoor members in the past, is there one in each category that tends to be more popular, or should I say more useful for a lot of the USIndoor members you work with?
The best thing for USIndoor members is obviously solar, whether it be rooftop solar or be parking lot solar, or maybe they have a small section of land behind their facility. Again, I could name multiples that I've talked to who had these types of operations, but I don't want to single anyone out. That's the number one thing. The second thing is LED lighting. And whether you go through APPI or Environ for an LED lighting retrofit upgrade, I highly suggest, if you have not done this yet, this is something that's literally going to cut your bills by a significant operation. Now, most USIndoor members have probably switched to LEDs, but I have seen some facilities that have, I don't know, is it nickel metal halide, or sometimes there's these huge lights above the fields that aren't LED. There's obviously an answer for everything. So those are probably the top two.
And I can attest to the LED lighting, because I'm a shameless plug, our Go Indoor 2 years ago, we had a full article about LED lighting retrofitting and converting over to that. So it was a pretty big deal back then. It still is. So absolutely.
Still is.
Yep.
Some people have done it, some people haven't, and even right down to replacing doors and windows. Down here in Florida, we have hurricane proof thermal windows. They help with cooling and they help with wind mitigation. I worked with somebody, when you're looking over here on the left, anaerobic biodigesters. That's basically converting animal waste from chicken plants into energy. So there's a solution for anything.
That's awesome.
Yeah. That's what I have for you guys today. Thank you. Thank you again, James, for having us on. We'll leave a little bit of time for some question and answers. And obviously, I hope that I have all the answers that I have. Again, I'll put my contact information into this. And you guys can always contact me, but if we have any questions that you think might arise, James, feel free to ask away.
All right. Well, I just have one big question in closing that goes back to those REAP grants you were speaking of. How difficult is it to gain or qualify for those on average?
Absolutely. So I'm going to go ahead and basically a REAP grant. The best thing about the USDA REAP grant is you can have one location that's eligible for it, but you might not have another. So the business has to have, here's the biggest thing. Business has to have less than 1,250 employees. That's the number one key eligibility factor. The second is if the business is located in the USDA's eligible area. And maybe what I'll do, James, before I send this on, I'll add, if I can, I'll add the eligibility link. Although I almost prefer to have people contact me because it's kind of convoluted, which maybe we should just stick to. But if you're in those areas, the grant makes solar the best available investment you can possibly do.
Great. And I guess a quick follow-up to that is, what about those facility operators who think, you know what, my space is limited and I'm not sure the structure of my facility could withstand or hold the weight of solar panels on top of the building?
Yeah.
What are my options?
Yeah, so what we do is in part of our site audit, we either talk to, now I don't think a lot of USIndoor members have an engineering or engineer on site, but we look at that in our facility audit. Simple questions, basically. Hey, Mr. Customer, how long have you had the building? Oh, well, we've been here 5, but the building's been here 30. Well, right away, there might need to be some upgrades. I just built the building last year. Well, more than likely, you're good. Solar is not very heavy. The pounds per square foot is like 2 to 3. It's very, very light. It all depends on the racking system and the mounting system that's required. So if somebody has a pitched roof in their facility, it's going to be lighter than if they have a flat roof where we have to add a bunch of brackets that actually have a pitch on them. The second thing is the parking lot solar is becoming very popular. And what I've done is talk to people when they want parking lot solar. You take the closest parking lot to your main entrance. You cover the entire parking lot with parking lot solar, or how much you need. You might not need to do the whole thing. And then you provide a walkway to the front door. By doing so, your customers can come in there. You're reaping the benefits of solar, but they don't have to get out of their car and run inside soaking wet. It's a very good option. People are doing that all over. I don't know when you guys drive around your towns if you see it, but it's becoming more and more popular. And it's designed for people who want solar but don't have the roof space, don't have the ability to fix the roof, and or just simply don't have the land.
Awesome. Well, Jamie, that's it for me. I want to again return that thank you for being here, for sharing your knowledge and insights and what you and APPI and Environ does. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, we'll be putting links to the presentation and, of course, contact information for Jamie so that you guys can reach directly out to him to kind of get that audit process off the ground. Super important, super valuable. Thanks again, Jamie, for your time. Yeah. And we'll definitely see you next year for our conference in St. Petersburg. Jamie and APPI are already locked in, so I hope to see most of you, if not all of you, who are listening to this at our conference next year, end of April, early May. Till then, this has been another edition of the Know Your Game podcast. Thanks a lot.
Take care, guys.